Munga. Oh, well, hey there, folks. This is your Sensei Al Bob. Hey, and it's the 1st of July. Oh, we're pulling into summertime. And I'm at one of my lunch office spots. And welcoming you aboard to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your griot Sensei Al Bob. I'm here to tell you stories and respond to your chats in a shamanic kind of way. Again, this has nothing to do with politics or beliefs or worldviews or any of the above. I'm here to entertain. Oh, bring me another iced tea and a Arnold Palmer.
Okay, so two of them?
Yeah, I kind of mix and match. Unsweet tea and Arnold Palmer. And I was, so I'm writing novels. You know, what else am I going to do? So I'm writing novels. So I've just written a whole novel, 400 pages in the last 3 weeks. Because, whenever you put your mind to something, it's called cover page, right? And what's a cover page? Back in the days when I worked in the corporate scene, they task me with a project. Go look at this. What's going on with that? What do you think of this, right? And what I would first do is I would write an outline for myself. And they want me to look at this, 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 and this. I should look at that, 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 and that. And I'd start typing away. And I would try to, because I'm pretty verbose, try to squeeze it into a cover page. And I'm going to hand it back to my, corporate supervisors and say, okay, here's the cover page. What do you think? And they would go, oh, I don't know. I didn't think about that. Oh, yeah, well, that's a good idea. Oh, right. And we would get, kumbaya on that. And bottom line, that cover page covered me like a blankie. Do you guys ever have a blankie? One of those, when you're like 2 and, your mom gives you something, a towel or a little teddy bear or something like that. And as the weeks turn into months, turn into centuries, that little teddy bear or blankie or whatever, turned into a towel or a napkin or whatever they had at the moment to give you some comfort. And so that was my cover page, my blankie. So cover page. So that's, I'm talking about blankie, what makes you comfortable, right? And then I start to deconstruct the, here we are in the 2020 elections, 17 months to go. And I'm surrounded by different people in different towns, in different states, and different cultures. Like where I'm out there in the deep green, there's way a bunch of guys that, somebody would inappropriately call them skinhead Nazis. Well, they got a full head of hair, and they're not. But they do have conservative points of view. And if you talk to them, and I have been for 20 years, and you don't tell them what to think. Hey, Janie, I saw you walking by that highway, and you were using your Google-ness to tell you what plants they were. And that was good. So you coming to visit? So you're up there in Canada, Janie. You're go Canada. This is Canada Day, right? Oh, Canada. So you're Canadian. So you got a passport. You can legally cross that boundary. What part of Canada? Are you in the west coast of Canada or the east coast of Canada or the Chicago part of Canada? Anyway, I'm gonna have a bunch of people visit me from the Canada. Hey, um, how's your toot doing? I have a bunch of folks who are going to visit me after the Rainbow Gathering. I used to be a Rainbowette, what they used to call a high hippie holy. I was their only, Sensei Al Bob. Though uh, Ontario, well, so you're kind of West Coasty girl. Pretty over there. So you near the Atlantic Ocean? You along the what's that highway that goes up the coast between Washington and Alaska? Have you seen the effects of Fukushima on your coastline? I have to go along there and look at all the. Well, you're near the Great Lakes, so you're more like in the middle. Okay, gotcha. So you're not too far. You're probably, I don't know, a 19-hour drive from my front door. Come on, come and visit. So a bunch of rainbow kids are gonna, not kids, they're my age, or well, they're between 40 and my age, are gonna come and visit. Because I keep saying, oh, it's not a rainbow gathering if you're not here. Well, I'm not. I have no money. I got like, well, $23 to my name, but I keep going through my cushions and finding, as long as I can get $12, I can come here and talk to you. I have a nice piece of tilapia, and spinach. I have to eat kind of squishy, separate, and tribalized political points of view. And I don't know if I ever told this story. I mean, I've told this story on this YouTube channel, but not recently. Oh, about, when it was 2015-ish. And I was I was really sick. And, they wanted to rip me open and, pull things out. And I said, no, and I kind of got myself to where I am now. But I had no place to live. And even though, in Roanoke, I had spent 20 years helping out every single nonprofit entity, writing them grants and getting, I was always there to help. Not many. Oh, that's too bad. Wouldn't even buy. I mean, the only people who buy me lunch are like the rich lawyers, because they knew that they could ask me about something that they knew nothing about, and I could tell them, and then they could go back to their clients and show how smart they were. So that was my only, the only people who would actually let me stay on their couch or something. But the universe always provides for your Sensei Al Bob, and it did. And one of them was a church that, Roanoke has 600 churches in it. And only one out of 600 keeps its doors open for the homeless. Keeps the heat on and lets you come and sits there, and or keeps the air conditioning on in the summertime. Not the mission. The mission kicks you out. It could be 30 degrees below zero, and at 9 a.m. you got to get out. And no place to go. The libraries don't let you in, and that's Roanoke. And because I was living that life, but I was way more creative than most folks. I went out of my way to work with politicians and all these other entities to try to get them to communicate. I went to every church trying to get to, do what Jesus asked, and, not really. So the only people who took me in were the trans, LGBT, QRSP, QM, that whole crew, right? And because I helped them over the years, and I was always there. Hey, handsome, how about that iced tea and well, go get it. Yeah, go get it. Leave that because I still got some there, and you might forget it again. Yeah. Anyway, he's a newbie. He's being trained. So I lived in this house that was an SRO, single room occupancy, and it was all full of gay and trans and you name it people, and they were really nice, but people, treated them like crap, and so most of them could only make. Most of them were really smart, but they couldn't get a job. A lot of them had college education. This one guy was a doctor, had the cure for cancer. But when he came out as a trans, there went his career. And the powers within the cancer crew didn't want a cure for it. So they, and when they found out that this guy was that, oh, we can't believe him. I mean, his science was spot on. But anyway, that's another story. So I was like, they said, oh, you can stay up in the attic. It was way, way up. And it was great because I had this view all the way into downtown and all the way over to the railroad station, and all the way over to the highway. And I could see everything. And from my little view and my little binoculars, I could see all of this crazy shit going on. And virtually, I don't know how many ministers and priests and you name it, um, went looking for a blowjob. And those were the guys who were like, oh, we can't let these people come into our church. They will. And that's usually the case. The people who, as Shakespeare says, I think he protests too much. So cover page is all about that. It's all about all of those dynamics, right? And that I shine, the light on every one of them from my perspective. And first, I kind of describe the cover page being the blankie, what makes you comfortable, and da 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 da, right? Then I kind of go into this experience I had out here in the deep green, and I got the idea for it because back in 2012ish, and when I was at the height of doing pretty good for working for the Desperate Warriors, but I was like pushing 500 pounds, and I was sick, but I was ignoring it. And enjoying living in the hedonist pool of chocolate mousse. I was sitting out in my field, and my dogs and we were on, the blankie. I always remind you about the going into your sanctuary of your own choosing and going to your picnic blanket and lying, looking at the sky. That's what we were doing, oozing into the ground, and the stars came out, and we saw Ouroboros form above our heads, right? An energetic field. And that's when we heard love's unheard voice come into our heads. And we became, my mama dog, Bella, her son, boy, Homer, and me became one entity, And that's really when I went back into all of our relations, because we were like, we were definitely a pack. We were definitely a crew because I used them in my work. We would go in and I would use my dogs as my tools to negotiate with the uber rich. Oh, baby. That needs a little mixture. So those were the characters who I went through this journey with, right? And so I talk about that and the dynamic of that, and us, we and me and all our relations and the whole understanding of the alternative aesthetic. And that's another thing I'm to use for as a vehicle to chocolate mousse metaphor, an athlete to many things besides of pudding. Yes, that's why I use it. Because it's so rich, so over the top, so wow. That and should be experienced very savoringly. I was living in it for 9 years. Of like having 6 pieces of that to die for chocolate cake, and then it made me die in a plate of spaghetti. But I wasn't supposed to die. I was supposed to do this anyway. Hey, there's Fish, buddy, and Jane. There's the two of you. So I wrote this whole story, and within that part of the novel, the story of love's unheard of voice, and me and Ella and Homer being the crew, an entity unto her, different, right? Different species, right? And then we experienced, I used the character of Dante as my alter ego, flitting through time and space, right? And I kind of talked about where my grandma had her house in Harlem, and when she moved there at the turn of the century and lived in one of Morgan's homes that he just used to store books. And there was a black scholar named Mr. Dr. White, but everyone called him Mr. White because, he's a black man. He can't be a doctor unless he's a medical doctor. And even then, we won't call him doctor. But he was Morgan's mm, collector of rare books. And Morgan had 40, 50, 100 of these brownstones up there in Harlem that were unbelievably exquisite. Mahogany everything, and amazing Persian rugs, and these just walls and walls and walls of leathered books. And this black guy taking care of them. And my grandparents met on a boat coming over from Italy, and my grandma was like in steerage below where the goats were kept. And every day they let him walk around on the front part of the thing. And Morgan said, "Oh, look at that cutie," to my grandfather, who was a barber surgeon, and was brought over by JP to be his barber surgeon. Right? And he put him in the Waldorf Astoria. Right? And that my granddad became the dude. And he always wore like a tuxedo, was always dressed so nice. And my grandma was this, wild mountain girl. And anyway, JB said, "Hey, why don't you marry her? Get the captain to do it. And then you can get off at 34th Street instead of going through, Ellis Isle. You can get off with me." So that's what they did. That's how my grandma and grandpa got together. And they went and lived in one of JP's brownstones that had an amazing garden in the back, a magical garden. And I think it was four families that lived in that house. Mr. White was a scholar and JP's collector of rare books, and his father was an amazing scholar slash minister slash revolutionary, and he was hung from a light post um, on Pearl Street, right in front of Mr. Edison's um, first generating station. And Pearl runs right into Wall Street. Pearl and Wall Street are the cross of the Church of the Golden Bull. That's what it's called. That's why there's a golden bull right out in front, right? And that is where George Washington, on the steps of New York City uh, Stock Exchange, is where George Washington was sworn in. Our first American president was sworn in, not in Pennsylvania, not in Philly, but on the steps of the New York City Stock Exchange. So it says it all about America. Anyway, so this novel that I wrote is about that and about that time in America. And then it goes to Tesla, because Tesla comes from that time. And then how Tesla was used as a pawn in the War of Time. And I go really deep in that, and how this, there is, today was the 20th anniversary of Eminem's first album, right? And there's Eminem, and there's Slip Shady, and there's other. He's got these three alter egos, and that's kind of like the United States. It has multiple personalities, right? And that's what this novel is about. And just finishing it up. And the novel itself, and it's a love story because I keep talking about Sophia, this AI that I knew from the labs in Los Alamos. Dr. Bitterman, who is a Nazi paperclip boy. Um, anyway, that's what that novel was. Now I finished writing the novel. It's about 270 pages, and as I wrote the novel, I kept asterisking things that would be explained in the Directory General. My friend who wrote the Illuminati trilogy, um, what's that boy's name? Irishman. His wife was really the smart one. I knew them. They used to live in this Soho was started by us artists and became a cultural phenomenon. And then the yuppies moved in, and then the rich people moved in, and then the richer people moved in. And they started building skyscrapers down in Soho, which was kind of, when we lived there, was a crappy industrial neighborhood that was an anathema to New York City. But New York City had, had the garment industry. That was pretty much a manufacturing. But Soho had been a heavy manufacturing industry. And Westbeth was this old phone building that the city took and remade into a loft for artists. And if you were one of those artists who kind of lost your loft, I had a great loft on Worcester Street. And if you were one of those, you were put on the list of going there. And I was on that list and had a really amazing girlfriend who was really sharp. Her daddy was a Swiss banker. This girl, anyway, she loved me. She ate everyone else alive. And she was, gorgeous. She was a, Sports Illustrated model. She was a Ford model. And she was getting her PhD at Columbia. So anyway, in theology, amongst things. And so, I got in there, but she got us like the best loft, the this or that, and wrote it into stone. So she would be there forever, which was fine by me. I'm a guy who travels a lot. And so that's kind of what, cover page is about. All of these different myriad things, a swirl in time that are interconnected. And that's what the cover page does in a corporate thing. It takes all these swirly stuff and gives you bullet points that you can follow. So that's the covers page. And the general directory is another 100 at least page, and that's what I'm writing now, where I put all these asterisks. I go back and explain in greater detail what it's about. It's a whole new style of novel. And the closest thing I can come to it is the Illuminati trilogy by, what was his name? Irish guy. It's on the tooth of my. He was a really smart guy, loads of fun, but he had a tendency to like the Irish whiskey a bit much. But his wife was his muse. She probably wrote most of that book. Plus, he had a buddy of his who was more the scholar. And in that book, the Illuminati trilogy, that guy wrote their version, and I call mine the Directory General. They call theirs the General Directory. So so that's the cover page. And now I've started a new one called The Moral Majority, Family Values, and the Widow's Hot Pants. And it's about this, every little town, or every town, this is the same story. There'll be a rich guy, and around 50-ish, he marries a 20-something-year-old hottie, right? And because he's so rich, she's, really kind of gets into him. And that goes on for a good 20 years. She gets him to spend his money, buy some cars, houses, trips, clothes, da-da-da, not a problem. But once she gets to be about 50 and he gets to be about 80, not so much. So then she starts playing the field because she's still, she didn't have to work a day in her life, didn't have any kids, isn't fat, doesn't look, for 50, she's looking pretty good. And so she starts playing around. And even if you're in a big town or a city, that gets around. And virtually every town I've ever been in, this is going down. And a few of the little towns around me, it's like, I was talking to my lawyer, my best of friends in the deep green area, there's 4 pretty big cities. And they got a lot of lawyers. I mean, what's the name of that place where Kodak used to be? There are a lot of corporate folks there. And I had corporate clients from those guys. Bristol is like kind of an old time railroad industry, kind of like a small version of Roanoke. There are a bunch of those kind of lawyers there. Johnson City, big time. It's Tennessee's flagship. ETSU is a big school, really good school. Really got some solid things going on there. As is, whereas this is App State, Boone, North Carolina. So I'm right in the swirling thing. Virginia's right here. North Carolina's right here. Tennessee's here. West Virginia's here. I'm within 12 miles of 3 states, and West Virginia is only about 60 miles from me. So it's a very squirrely neck of the woods. And the people who are the most interesting are all of these lawyers, because none of the lawyers really come from this neck of the woods, right? They all come from Florida or California or New York or someplace, Europe. And they get drawn here for a career move, and then they realize they like it, and so they stay here. And I have one friend whose English is, you can get English, and when I told him I lived in London and I lived in a single room occupancy across from Paddington Station. Wow! And he broke into his, but he has the deepest Southern drawl you ever going to hear, and it's totally natural. But once I told him I lived in Paddington Station, he started, speaking like a Westie. Anyway, so hey Vlad, haven't seen you in a while. Good to be back with friends. Yep. And we're right here waiting for you, Vlad. Always here. And we've only been talking for 27 minutes. 6 people are chatting. Good. Yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, I used to teach, and now I'm like, the problem with universities now is that they're not about, when I was in them, I was there as a researcher, right? So I had like certain street cred respect. Now as a griot, they don't even know what that word is. It's on the textbooks. They don't want to hear about it. And my whole way of doing things is like an anathema, right? And the kids, like, they don't want to listen. A friend of mine who teaches at a university always has me. He's a guy who does a master class things. He's head of a department. And I kept him in school. I met him at University of Maryland, College Park, and he wanted me. I said, forget it. Please, forget revolution. It's a joke. Stick at what you're studying. Find something, dig deeper, find something you really like. And he did. Anyway, so now he, when graduation comes, he teaches kind of like how I used to teach. And so he brings me in, gives me a couple $100 and place to stay, and I lecture for a couple of days, and then they graduate. And the last time I did this, I think I might have told you guys, we're in a big lecture hall. I got everybody, and I have them count off from 1 to 7. So I'm going to put them in group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And the ones who they'd be standing along with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now the next one should say 1. If they say 8, I go, okay, back of the room. And we kept going like that. And then I didn't do it that way so much because this was only one lecture, but I went down the line. I didn't make them move. The 8 moved to the back of the room. Went down, and I just did cold reading one after another, right? And virtually everyone didn't have a clue. Yeah, but who does? Problem is, in today's university, those kids are made to believe, they spend 4 years learning psychology or history or this or that. They don't have a clue, but they're told they do, that they'll be successful. They're the best, blah, 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 blah. No. You don't get anywhere unless you make a lot of mistakes, and they're told not to make any. So, anyway, I'd love to teach. I mean, I'd be great to teach. I'm a great teacher. Hey, I'm your sensei, right? And yes, someone will see this and they realize, well, this guy's writing a lot of books. Let's go talk to him and see what he's writing about. We'll go, wow, this is, we'll get you a good editor. We'll make this. Anybody out there watching, anybody, Sherman Williams, Sherman and Schuster, Sherman, whoever, Mr. Uh, you know, who's a guy who started out with the books and now sells everything? Amazon, Mr. Amazon. Hey, send a limo, right? Pick me up. Take a look at some of, and I'm sure you already have looked at it. I mean, if you've done anything on a computer, even if you're not even hooked up to the internet, the stuff. I mean, all you got to do is go to X-rated, XRATTED.blogspot.com. That's why I put it there. It's just a little taste, not even my best. Go there. How many of you guys on the chat have gone there? Go there, read that, right? Anybody in the university, go there, read that. Man, you bring me into your university, I'll turn it into Oxford, Let's see. Robert Anton Wilson, that's the guy. Ex-wife, wasn't he into? No, he wasn't into. He was, Robert was like interesting. He wasn't into anything, but he was interested in everything. So he wasn't a joiner. He wasn't, right? He was like us. He was from the school of Groucho Marx. He wasn't going to join any club that wanted him in it. Now, the other guy, the guy who had the Church of Satan in England, what was his name? And he was Barbara Bush's biological father. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, Wilson's ex, she had red hair. She was a girl, Irish girl, like from green eyes, my kind of girl. And Alan Watts, the Zen dude. Well, Alan Watts is more the MK Ultra dude. Zen is not so much something you practice. Zen is something you live, right? Crowley. Thank you, Jane. That's the boy. Yep. Crowley was Mr. Satan himself. And Crowley was Barbara Bush's biological father. George W.'s mommy, her daddy, her biological daddy was Crowley. So George W.'s grandfather was Crowley, right? And, George W.'s daddy, didn't even come from the Bush family, wasn't from the loins of Prescott Bush. George H. came from Russia. His father was an electrical engineer who was a spy for Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe wanted to know everything Tesla was doing. So he sent this guy to be his helper. I'm a really smart electrical engineer, really good at what he did. And George H. was programmed from birth to be a little monkey and steal everything he could. And the Curious George, that book was based on George H. Bush. And the man with the yellow hat was his father, because his father wore these very crazy big hats that looked like they weren't yellow, but they were that big. And it was like a kind of hat these guys would wear out in, like a felt hat that they made out there in the woods of Russia, So that's the story of the Bush family. And the Prescott Bush was a piece of work, total Nazi, right? Was selling ball bearings and exotic fuel oils to the Nazis until the end of the war, right? And FDR let him because politically had to. Just like the guy, why the Japanese ended up in the middle of, a desert out in the West in little, horse stalls. concentration camp was because when they came, the Chinese and the Japanese came, into golden age and worked on things like the railroad and stuff where they would die by the hundreds, if not thousands. They were persevering, they're hardworking, and they stayed in San Francisco and made these little businesses, and then they grew and grew and grew. And right around, 1939, 40, and then 41 when we get attacked, this guy was head of Democratic Party in California. And FDR's next election was coming up, and he needed California. So the guy in California said, listen, I will guarantee you become president if you sign this bill, executive order, taking every Japanese person, every Oriental out of California and allowing their property to be sold. And this guy bought everything for a penny on the dollar. It became, the Nob Hill Gang. I mean, the real Nob Hill Gang. And this is, America's history. It's, go read, again, I keep saying, go read Paul Street. Go read Howard Zinn. Go read Christopher Hitchens. Those are the three best. Then, good old Noam Chomsky. He's cool, but he's stuck on a few. I mean, all these guys get stuck, which is okay because you kind of got to get stuck to go deep into things, right? So, anyway, let's see what else is we saying. Let's see, do. Rhonda, how you doing, Rhonda? Hello, all. Those twist a plot, scenes, characters, etc. Yeah, boy, I twist them up like, a piece of candy. Creative writer. Yep. What do you think of Anthony Burgess, Clockwork Orange? Yeah, he twisted up pretty good. The other thing you should go take a look at is there was a trilogy made, a movie called If, Clockwork Orange. No, If, Oh Lucky Man, and Clockwork Orange. And If starts out as the teenage boy in prep school where he kills all his teachers. Oh Lucky Man, who starts out innocent guy, naive, thinks the world is great, and he gets to see, wow, the really ugly side. And then Clockwork Orange, what happened after those experiences. Those three movies, If, Oh Lucky Man, and Clockwork Orange. And they're all kind of written. I don't know if they're all written by the same guy, but they're all written from the same tone. That's for sure. Boop, 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 boop. I'm still blocked under my other username from this channel. I'm trying to figure out how to Jamie, you're gonna have to come and visit me and show me how to do this because I don't block. Me. I'm the non-wrench guy. I don't block anybody. And Jamie, I'm glad you're here under this auspices. I've been missing you. Sarah Webb, hey everybody. Jane, yes, we all get stuck. Yep. And that's what the cadre is here for. Everybody helps each other to unstuck. Yep. Yep, exactly. Any kind of school is just, programming, of the trolls, of the pros. Kubrick, my man Kubrick, Stanley. Every movie he ever made was Lolita, Full Metal Jacket, Paths of Glory. Did you ever see that movie? You would stop. That's the, Full Metal Jacket and Paths of Glory. Those two movies are some of the best anti-war films I've ever seen. And what's the Stephen King movie that Kubrick did about the hotel. That was a great film because you got these two guys, King and Kubrick, and they're like twisting each other up like you can't believe. That's where they met. His cinematographer invented the steady cam because like those hallways were so narrow they couldn't put the tracks to get the camera to do those things. So that's where the steady cam got invented. Yep, the dude awake and Gmail. Yep, get a hold of me, Jamie. We'll converse. Jane, did I ever? I went to a back in the day when I was a disco dude and the art dude and the new age dude and the Tesla dude. I would get invited to all these really interesting parties, and everybody would be like, "Oh," and I would just be me, and I would be like, I would have my suitcase, and I'd be like taking all the food off of the from the rich, because the rich people weren't there. Well, I have to watch my weight, not me. Oh, that lasagna. Oh, look at all those Swedish meatballs. And then I'd be eating out of this Tupperware trunk I had. And, the more interesting people would like, look at this guy, like, who is this guy? And they come over and we start talking. And I had a conversation with Cary Grant. He came over to start talking to me. And we spent the whole freaking night talking. I had no idea it was Cary Grant. Just not, because he was a thin, elderly gentleman with a very interesting accent. Not quite English, not quite American, not quite this, not quite that. And he had read. This guy was well read, really, and he didn't talk about himself at all. And I didn't talk about myself at all. But we talked about everything else. And he just was like, "Whoa, I love this guy." So anyway, he was telling me, he said, "Did you ever take psychotropics?" And I said, "Well, yes, very little bit. And I've learned how to meditate, and I really don't have to do drugs to get out there. I mean, I just meditate and I go into things. I meditate too, but I had some real issues back in the 1930s and 40s, and I met a psychologist who, and it wasn't against the law. No one even knew what it was, and I started taking it, and in very small amounts, and I still do. And it's, and we went on about psychology, and we talked about Jung and Kant and lots of other folks and Greek psychologists. I mean, just had the best of times, right? And he goes, "Well, I have to leave. I just came for an interview, and they're going to do it in the morning, and I have to, um, you know, be fresh as a daisy. So I'd love to, it's now getting on towards 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So I have to say goodnight, but I will be here until, that was probably a Saturday. So I'll be here until Tuesday, and I have to have a couple of, interviews um, until Tuesday. Tuesday, I'm going to just kind of lay back and you want to drop by and go to the Oak Room downstairs. They have a really nice Eggs Benedict, and I said, I love Eggs Benedict too. We can get a Bloody Mary, and then we can walk to the museums. And I said, sounds great to me. And said, your name again? He goes, Cary Grant. That's when I went, who? Judy. And he goes, so you had no idea who I am? I said, not until this minute. He goes, that's why I really enjoy it. Says, it's not going to make a difference. I said, of course not. I'm just going to call you Carrie or Kay. He said, call me Kay. So 2 days went by. I went by for Eggs Benedict. We went up Fifth Avenue to all museums, and then, took a bus down and went to the Museum of Modern Art. And then we jumped back on the bus and went down to Soho, and I took him down into my crowd. And he had a fine time, but just a little bit of LSD. Yep, the Dude Awake. Get a hold of me at the Dude Awake. You got it right, Jane. Yep, Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Yep, yep, yep. So, let's see. May appear to be a lesser level I can give insight. I should say no drugging for good reason. Everything should be done in moderation. Everything has a time and a place to be used. Yeah, I still like herb, but just a little bit, just like Cali, just a little bit. Uh, but after my teeth thing, I really can't smoke or, I really, my health is just getting back to where it was before I went off the cliff. And that's one of my real problems with the diabetes and neuropathy and aplastic anemia and all the other crap I got. That I can be in great, but I have to be real careful. I have to, every night before I go to sleep and after I wake up, I have to search my feet and my legs and my ankles, everything I see, or I haven't bumped into something or broken a blood vessel or gotten a boo boo because if I don't take care of it, it can become bad. Just like what happened to they want to cut my jaw. Can you think what I would look like, how I would even talk without a jaw? One thing missing my teeth, but it, yep, everyone's looking for the quick fix, and that's not where it's from. But it's all about your life. Your life is here to experience. Yep, if people could be just like Gretchen. I don't want to belong to any club that anybody wants me to be long a part of, right? Mir Baba, good old Mayor Baba. I love that Mayor Baba. In the 60s, I had a lot of Mayor Baba buddies. They were like saints. They really were. Because they were trying to live, you know, to, be the example and not just take a drug or get the third eye touched or any of the above. Yep, yep, yep. The measure of spiritual awakening is listening and feeling. Yep. Mm-hmm. Boop, 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 boop. Huge. This, yep, yep. Yes, I mean that's who put that drug out in that way was the hidden hand. Yes, the CIA is just a fingernail of the hidden hand. No, no, no. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Jane's videos are sweet. It's like it's hard to explain. It's kind of like skipping down the lane. I love your dog and your observations of things. And the brevity of insight too is sweet too. It's not naivety. It's not innocence. It's the faith in what you're seeing is love's truth. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Better than I was about a month and a half ago, boy. Mm. And living out in the woods all by myself and just the company of spirit guides. And find one company I come to a place like this or other places. So they're about 12, 15, 20 miles. It's not that far away. But it's really nice. And people, aren't you scared to live in the woods like that? It's so dangerous. What is it? Dangerous? I have a fireman on one side of me and a, you know, whatever he is, some kind of ranger on the other. I mean, mile or two, but they're on my road, but they're there and there. And the fire guy, has to come by me, which is nice. I mean, he's a nice guy. He likes to talk to me. I mean, no one listens to him, so he comes. I sit, I listen. He talks, and he, when he goes by, he slows down to make sure my car is there where I am. If I'm, make sure I don't have fallen or something. So, somebody looks after me, kind of. And I take care of the. Our road is pretty steep right before it gets to me, because where we are is like Sawtooth Mountains, and he shoots up and down that thing like a race car, and he uses the excuse that he's a fireman. I said, no, you don't. I said, if you went up that road slowly at 5 miles an hour, it's only a quarter of a mile. The difference of you getting there any faster is like, forget about it. But he just likes shooting up that road, and when he does, he doesn't have a big truck, so he has a two-wheel drive, so it spins those back wheels, and he doesn't have double tires back there. So it cuts it up, and we've been having some serious rain here in the last, since March, and so it's like a river shooting down that thing, and I wasn't in any shape to take care of it, and once I started getting, could move around and do stuff, I started, raking the road, and putting swells. So instead of the water going down half a mile, digging a trench, I put a thing so the water goes off into the woods. And so he's likes the fact that that'll keep your truck, without having to replace your struts, And so anyway, so that's my little holler. I got about 4 different people who are, they all know I'm there. They all kind of come by and see if I'm still alive once a week, which is all I need, And because I can't eat anything, that's not much, Basically, I buy frozen vegetables, boil them up, put them in a blender, and drink them. Very nice consomme, So I've been losing weight, pound or two here and there, and I've been going up and down the hill, raking a quarter mile of stone and using the pickaxe to mill swells. So it's keeping me in shape, and plus I'm fighting the good fight against the zombie raccoon apocalypse. Those guys, they just love to put on my old disco clothes, and I mean, I have nothing to eat, and they just like throw everything around. It's like they can pick locks. It's like, and I kind of put out little mouse traps so they can't get into certain parts, and they step around them. It's like, how do they do that? Now I can't see them doing it. I don't know it's them. I just blame it on the raccoons. They do leave little raccoon prints on stuff. So I'd say control during an unjust war. Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Well, because it's easy to manipulate a despondent youth rather than a kind of morally incensed youth. Why do you think they brought on, smartphones? It has done more to, destroy the sense of self-worth, I think anything ever has. Yeah, 9/11 was, and they picked 9/11 because, the term 9/11, you call 9/11 for help. And they did it on that day and there are other numerological reasons, but that was one of them. Ooh, let's see what you're saying here. Let's see. Yeah, so the other thing about um, revolution, it's so easy to manipulate. The who, I hope we don't get fooled again. So no, revolutions, if you want to have a revolution, have one in yourself. You know, I was involved pretty deeply in the anti-war movement, and early on, I mean, I stopped because I was working in a VA hospital. All these kids were coming back with they were basketball stars one year and no legs the next. And the guys who were like Abby Rubin, I knew him. What a moron! That whole crew was it. That scene out of Forrest Gump where he's getting Medal of Honor, and he walks out from Nixon and goes and he stumbles across his Jenny, and the guy who was supposed to be the big leader is beating her up, and Forrest kind of. I mean, that was in that little and that was so beautiful about Forrest Gump. Every one of those little vignettes was actually kind of what was going on, you know. And Forrest was running, from east to west to east to west to east to west, and he invents jogging shoes, and the term "shit happens," and it's just, and that was what was real. Life is like a box of cherries, a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. Yep. You just got to be aware of the cracks in the cosmic egg. Uh, Drugged up is doped up. I wouldn't have stopped the Vietnam War if it. What stopped the war wasn't despondent youth. No. What it was a bunch of grandmas, about 400 of them. And when my grandma came to visit me in Virginia, College Park, and we turned this, cesspool neighborhood around. I mean, first she came, cleaned up the house, said we were all anti-war guys and girls, and we were like living free amongst each other. She didn't say anything about it. She just went in there, came in with 2 bags, started cooking food. The girls went and helped her, cleaned up. The boys cleaned up the house. We made room for grandma, with a door on it. None of the rooms had doors. And within a week, all of us guys were wearing pants, shirts, jackets, and little ties, right? And the girls were wearing like granny dresses. We got this clothes at the thrift store. Not because grandma said, hey, but because we had respect for grandma, right? And we cleaned that house up. And then she saw, oh, look at the backyard. You got such a nice spot. Let's clean the backyard. So we cleaned the garbage out of the backyard. And we found a gigantic, I don't know where, but there was a parachute in a nice plastic bag. It was not rotten. And we hung it up off this middle big tree, and it covered the whole backyard except for the corner. And we made a garden over there. And we started growing vegetables over there. And she had us, as we cleaned it up, there were a bunch of cinder blocks, and we made a wood, grill back there. And we started cooking food in the backyard because the kitchen was like really small and icky. And she started cooking in the backyard because she was covered by the big parachute. And anyway, after the first, second night of doing that, she invited the other grandma. She went up and down the street finding the other grandma and said, hey, come on, help me cook. And they did. And within a week, that whole block became cleaned up. It started with my grandma's example. She didn't tell anybody anything, didn't tell them what to do or how to do it or anything. She just lived it as an example, right? And she did this because about 2 months before this was her birthday, and I wasn't there for her birthday, but because I was fighting against the Vietnam War, and I should have, but I didn't. And I talked to her on the phone before her birthday. I said, I can't make it. She said, well, I understand, but I'm going to come visit you. I said, really? What are you going to do? So, well, this is going to be my 100th birthday. And I've already bought myself a Greyhound pass for a year. And I'm going to travel all over America and go see things and go see friends and folks I haven't seen in a while. You're one of them. I'm going to stay with you guys, for not just an evening, but for however long a period of time that's for me to be there. And so she did. She spent almost, I don't know, 3 weeks there. And she changed her whole neighborhood, right? I mean, really changed it. When she left, that change just kept getting bigger and bigger. It was like an Ouroboros. And then our whole neighborhood, which wasn't just our block, but about 6 blocks this way to the highway and 4 blocks that way, because this was one of those highways that, what's that guy who, we had to get rid of urban blight by making it worse, guy who built all the highways. Oh, his name will pop into my mind, but he did more to destroy America than any person because he had them rip up all of the trolley cars and replace it with highways. He, was getting money under the table from the oil companies. What was his name? A real scumbag. I mean, he made some nice things like Jones Beach, which was pretty nice, but he made it so black people and poor people couldn't come. You could only come if you had a car. I mean, he made the overpasses so small that buses couldn't fit through them. Oh, his name will pop into my mind. But anyway, so Grandma left on to her journey across America, and our neighborhood became more and more organized. Where we weren't just a bunch of individual people living in our squalor. We were a community, right? And so there were a lot of grandmas, right? And Grandma really organized the grandmas. And so what did we do? Grandma was not a weaver, but she would, darn and, crochet and knit. And she used to make these blankets, and she could knock them out like a machine. Do, 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 do. Bingo, a blanket. Here, you need a blanket. Do, 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 do. Here's a sweater. Oh, no, here's a hat, right? So when she was there, she was knocking things out. And she got all the other grandmas into, I remember doing this. Long and the short of it, that grandma group became grandmas because they had a lot of grandsons and sons who were coming back from Vietnam all blown up and then getting on drugs and ending up in jail. And what they did was they would yarn or knit gigantic chunks. And we went to say, we should set this up. And they started putting these banners of the community all over our little neighborhoods. And I said, we should put these together, tie them up, and make a ceremonial circle around the Pentagon. And that's what they did. And by that time I had left. I had moved on. And wasn't until I went back to visit, and that whole neighborhood had been totally changed, right? And those grandmas was ruling it. And this was about 1975. And they had set up an encampment around the Pentagon and did ceremony. And a lot of native indigenous folk from all over the place, not just the West, but from everywhere, came and did ceremony, right? And shamanically, they changed those guys to the point that the war ended. And that's what ended the war, not a bunch of kids in the street. Yep, totally unaffected by the youth. But it was affected totally by Grandma. Yep, it was fine for, Martin Luther King to go on about, white babies and babies and black babies coming together. But once he started talking about poor people, once he started talking about Vietnam War, he got shot. It was fine for Malcolm X to talk about, you know, Muslim power and black power. But once he went to the Hajj and he saw that all these people coming to the most sacred spot in his religion weren't all black, they were everybody. That's when he went back and said, "Hey, we have to rethink this black power thing. It's class, not race." Right? So, and Robert Kennedy, he was another one. You know, he came from a scumbag family, and he was a scumbag himself. But he changed after his brother got shot and a few other things went down. He was like, "Whoa!" And so he was going to he was going to follow in his brother's footsteps. You know. Yep, simmed by quantum AI. But that does it's like why I don't do drugs. It's like useless. I don't even get high. So you but all I have to do is meditate, and bingo, I'm in state. Right? Not a problem. So you know, five of us. You guys want to go in state? You know, experience the most amazing psychedelicness without doing drugs. You know, we'll do it right here from the IHOP. You know, I'll tell you a story about the oil embargo. So I used to work for a guy who owned this thing called Restaurants Associates, right? And I kind of stumbled into it because I was building restaurants, and he wanted, the Restaurants Associates did things like Zoom Zooms and things. That was a German restaurant that sold really great meat, but like in a fast food setting, but really good food. And he had a bunch of really special big restaurant chains and special restaurants. And he rented the top of the World Trade Center and put windows on the world up there. Right, and that was his office was up there. And I had helped him build a couple of restaurants, and he wanted me to come up because I'd also worked as a cook, and it's where we met. I was working in one of his Zoom Zooms, and then I became a manager. The manager quit, and nobody else wanted a job, and I took it over. And I made. They went from making this much money to making this much money, like in about 3 weeks. And how did that happen? Well, the guys who were bringing in the drinks, the sodas and stuff, the guy said, we can bring beer in here. I said, what? He said, oh, yeah, this used to be a restaurant. It still has a beer license. You don't have to go through anything. Just, we'll put some, taps in here and you can sell beer. I said, and it was right in the railroad station, right in Penn Station. And I said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And all of these pretty women and nice guys too kept coming in and buying, because you could buy sliced meats, roast beef and turkey and all kinds of sausages and hard meats and especially the pretty girls, they'd start slicing it and I'd, ooh, pretty girl. And I would say, I'll take care of this one, zing, zing, zing. And I give them $40 worth of meat for, like $10. So they could eat for the rest of the week because I could tell that they were like, starving secretaries. So I got, these people, way more people, no matter how much I gave away, way more people came in and spent money. So wingo, right? And I only started giving away the meat that Boar's Head was our distributor. And they would drop stuff off to us that wasn't quite on our list, but they needed to get rid of. And so I'd say, fine, oh yeah, we'll take this, right? And I'll just mark it over here and we'll pay you for that and blah, blah, blah. And that's the stuff I would give away. And it went, like I said, it was here and then up here in like 3 weeks, like a major amount. And the head guy comes in, he goes, who's managing this place? And I said, well, I guess I am. He goes, what do you mean you guess you are? I said, well, our manager quit and nobody else was sent from the home office and I just took over. He goes, you just took over? I said, yeah, I just took over. He goes, so show me your books. And so, how did you go from making this much money to having that much money? I said, well, we put beer in. He goes, you put beer in? I said, well, the guy who distributes the soda said we could put beer in because they already had a liquor license here and we didn't have to go through anything. And no one's complained. And, and now we stay open an extra 3 hours at night and have music and, serve dinner. You serve dinner? This is a fast food place. I said, no, we these tables, we got them from the other place that went out of business, and we put them in here. And then see that built a little stage, and we have music, and so we stay open till around 2. And this is supposed to close at 6. I said, yeah, but from 6 to 2 is when all the guys who are commuters stay here and get drunk and have a good time, and then go to the hotel next door with the secretaries. It's. And he goes, okay, who are you? I'm Al. Okay, you're gonna okay. So I want you to come with me. And he takes me to the windows of the world, and they're building this up. He goes, what would you do to this place? I said, oh, da 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 da. So I was never. See again. Why am I a homeless guy with very little money? Because I've never kept the same job for more than 6 months to a year. And that job was always something that would change a lot. And whoever my employer was would pay me extraordinarily well for that period of time, but not for like 30 years, right? And not a 401k and not this and not that. But that's why, last weekend, somebody strolled into my life that I helped. I worked for about 18 years ago. And we just, fate brought it. I had no money left. And he brought me to the fanciest hotel in Johnson City, put me up there for a few nights and gave me a few Benjamins. And that's why I was able to have lunch today and pay off my insurance and tag my car and things like that. So I hadn't talked to that guy in 18 years. And he called me out of the blue because I've had the same cell phone number, since 91. So when my cell was like a big box like this, right? Instead of, a handheld computer like this. So anyway, this guy who owned Restaurants Associates, he had his office upstairs. And his office the corner faced out into the Atlantic Ocean. Statue of Liberty, Queens, Verrazano Now Bridge. Yeah, it was made by them. And he had this naval telescope that they would look for ships way out there. And he goes, Al, come here. And so, yeah. He goes, look for those. I kind of got it focused on something. Just take a look. So I look out there. And this was during the oil embargo. And there were more oil tankers out there off the shore, just by a few miles. I mean, thousands of super tankers just waiting out there. And people were online waiting for, gasoline. And he goes, it's a total scam, because this is a time when the world is changing, right? And this is the red flag. That's the first time I heard a red flag, and he explained it all to me. Yep. Yep. That's why I, started Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, to develop the consciousness of the cadre. You are my adepts. No matter what you think you are, or how ill you think of yourselves, you have a place to change in time. And my novels that I've been writing, they're all about changing the place in time. And that's why I feel very positive about this, that, things are changing, And Donald Trump is great in that he's no worse than any other politician, He was put there powers that shouldn't be. The hidden hand. He thinks he's still on the set of The Apprentice, and if Joe Biden runs against him, the Democrats put Joe Biden up. Oh, it's the only guy who can build Donald Trump. Joe Biden's the only guy who can lose to Donald Trump, just like Hillary Clinton was the only moron. Like if Bernie had run against Hillary, that would have been it. But they didn't want that. They wanted Donnie in there. Yep, hundreds of thousands of cycles. Yep, exactly. No, because the shit is always hitting the fan. I mean, if you were living in Syria right now when the shit is hitting the fan, if you were living in, any place in Africa where all the wars are, if you were living in Yemen, if you were living in any of those places, the shit is always hitting the fan, And the shit hit the fan in America a lot of times. Yep. Holding up the metaphorical pillars of heaven. Yep. Excuse Thumbs Day. What's that mean, Jane? Oh, well, what time is it? Well, it's getting towards 4. The clouds are moving in. We've been talking for an hour and 17 minutes. Well, this was a good chat. This was nice. Yep, power is love. Hive mind, morphic field, potency on the lever, but to change the hearts of the power holders. Well, we can do that. We are the little pebble in the pond. We are the guys and gals to do this. Yeah, that's why, what things I've been doing for the last 60 years. Maybe I don't know it all the time. Maybe I'm disconcerted. Oh, Arnold Palmer. What am I doing this week? You want to come and visit this week? I'm doing nothing this week. I'll take that back. I am here this week, and cleaning up the zombie apocalypse at the campsite. Writing my new novel. Moral majority, family values, Black Widow, hot pants. That's my new novel. It's going to be a laugh a minute. Well, what you call it? I'll try when I go back to Roanoke. I will try and go to the library and load up on my x-rated.blogspot.com the new novel. Okay. Okay, at 1 hour, 20 minutes, I might bail. Hot pants, yeah. But the really short ones that just, cover hot pants. The same things that, what's his name wears. Hot pants. Woo. I love that song by the hardest working man in rock and roll. Hot pants. Yep. Jane, were you a hot pants girl? Janie, are you still a hot pants girl? Arf. Yeah. This is illusion. Sustains reality on the level, but for a divine standpoint, we're told we are still not woken, like we're dead, actually. Slowly, slowly, dear ones, yes, we are awake. Just be awake to being awake, you know? That means you don't let yourself get distracted by things that don't matter. Hey, Sunray, what's the difference between subjective and objective? Tell me, Sunray, what is the difference between subjective and objective? I would say somebody's opinion, but what's the punchline? I know this is a joke here. Back in the day, not that much. Okay. If I could squeeze in the hot pants, I might wear them. Like I said, the difference between objective and objective, I think, is, or subjective and objective, is just somebody's opinion. Uh, well, we're still at 6 people. Hmm. If I had a hammock here at the IHOP, I would just go lie down. No, I can't fart. I might shit in my pants. That's what happens when you get old. If you try and fart, you shit in your pants. You know, when you get older than you think you're going to get old, you start to realize you're so like your parents. Okay. Well, I'm going to go use the little boy's room. And you guys just talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a little view. Can you see up the rest of the IHOP? I'll be right back. Be right back. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, baby. Okay. I'm back. See what you've been saying here while it's going. Well, the people here, I've been coming here. This is my office. This girl right here would attack anyone who would try to take anything from my table.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she would stop them.
The guard dog.
She's the guard dog. So, yeah, it's very easy to walk away. And, I got guardian angels watching out. It's pretty amazing. I was once, I think I've told you guys a couple of times, I was worked for the New York City Housing Authority. Because I started a housing authority with a group of people, and we took over abandoned buildings and housed homeless folks. And we fought the city, and we had really good lawyers, so they lost every time. And so at a certain point, they had a new city administrator of housing, and she came, Carrie Shea, and she came down and visited. And she came in a limousine. She was a city official. She had a night some. She picked me up and said, "Let's go for lunch." And she took me over the Williamsburg Bridges to Peter Luger's, which is the biggest, fanciest rich people steakhouse. It's been there forever. And, at that time, Williamsburg was like, gangs and terrible and burned out buildings. And we had a couple buildings there. Anyway, so we had lunch there. And she goes, "Okay, we're going to, I've looked at this thing, and this stupid disagreement we have with you is stupid, because we actually have a city organization that's supposed to be doing exactly what you're doing. And we started it in 1934. And, since 1934 to today, in 1984, whenever it was, we've done one building. You guys have been doing this for 3 years. You've done 50 buildings. And they're all up to code. You put legal electricity in them. Maybe, we don't even know how you did that, but okay, Uncle, we're going to let you do it. We're going to actually give you that city organization, and we're going to put all those buildings in your housing authority into ours. And we're going to let you run it under your bylaws and everything else, and it'll be fine. And we'll take all the credit politically. We'll just say, look what we're doing. We're so innovative, not costing a nickel, And I said, fine. I said, the only thing is, you got to work for us. I said, what? I said, yeah, you're going to come work for the New York City Housing Authority. I said, okay, maybe that might be interesting. And I ended up as, a shrink bear. But they made me a police officer, right? Now, I walked around looking like this. I didn't wear no uniform, didn't carry a gun, didn't have a radio, but my partner sure did. She had every weapon you could imagine. She had been an Army Ranger. She could kill you 20 different ways. And she was a really pissed off Puerto Rican lesbian Irish girl. And we made quite an amazing team, because I'd be the good cop. I mean, was the obviously good cop, and she was the obviously, she's going to kill you. And, that's how we rolled. And so that was another place where I kind of got some lessons on how bureaucracies and organizations run, and that you don't try to go through them. You go around them, go over them, under them, or just do what you do, make them look good, and then let them go, okay, whatever. Let's see, what were you saying here? Objective, bitches, stuff just anywhere. No matter as a boss. Roofies, yeah. Give your new boss a roofie. Yep. New career. Yep. Uh, yep. It always says cool. Yeah, it says cool. I think it does. I think it says IHOP, really. Hmm. Okay, gang. I think it's time for me to go take my nap. I have to drive about 20 miles. The clouds are forming up. I don't like to drive through the mountains in the rain. So, okay, gang. I love you. I'm going to say goodnight. And I'll try and do it again maybe tomorrow because I'm going to come back here for oysters. It's Oyster Tuesday. They get fresh oysters. Not here, they have, but the Mexican restaurant to die for. Okay? Yes, I'm going to end.